Blackberry, it used to be RIM, has finally launched its Z10 and Q10 running Blackberry 10 OS. It's gesture-tastic and seems to remind a lot of people of Nokia's older MeeGo Harmattan interface on the N9. But the news here is the hardware. The Z10 has a 4.2-inch high-res WXGA screen, a dual-core 1.5 GHz processor and 2 gigs of RAM. Should be more than enough. There's a standard 8-megapixel main camera, 16 gig of storage plus microSD. 2013 specs include LTE, NFC and Bluetooth 4. Its sister phone is the Q10, very similar to the old 9900, but with a higher res 3.1-inch square 720p AMOLED screen, very colourful, a stainless steel frame and quote edge-to-edge glass on the front. I'll have both handsets in for review in due course. Everyone's going waterproof these days, it seems, and Samsung's new Galaxy X Cover 2 is of the super ruggedized variety, also proof against dust. Inside the hard shell is a 4-inch WVGA display running Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, and TouchWiz added on a 1 GHz dual-core processor, 5-megapixel camera, a largish 1700 mAh battery, and the other usual smartphone specs. Interestingly, there's also a Cardio Trainer Pro workout application built in. The LG Optimus G just got a successor, the Pro, taking it to a 5-inch 1080p display, a 1.7 gig Snapdragon S4 processor, 2 gig of RAM, 32 gigabytes of onboard memory plus a microSD card, Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, LTE, a 13 megapixel camera and a 3000 mAh battery to keep it going along. Wow! King of the mid-range, Huawei has announced their latest, the Ascend G615, a quad-core device with a 4.5-inch 720p HD display, a 1.4 GHz quad-core processor, 1 gig of RAM, 8-megapixel camera, 8 gig of storage, and a big 2150 mAh battery under the hood, plus the other usual specs, though it does only launch with Android 4.0. Shame on Huawei. Here's a fascinating proposition. Take the surprisingly best-selling Galaxy S3, which I still reckon is slightly too large for most people, and then shrink it down to a more normal size. This is the Galaxy S3 Mini. In theory, it's a wonderful idea which should extend Galaxy S3 range sales even more. In practice, it's flawed on several levels. Look, I actually love this thing. The Galaxy S3 Mini feels great in the hand with all those trademarked Galaxy S3 curves. It's quite fast enough for me. The components used are fine. Good camera, great speaker, decent screen and so on. I really wanted to give it a rave review. Honest, however, there's a huge conceptual problem here, and it's entirely of Samsung's own making, and it took my tech-savvy daughter a grand total of 5 seconds to nail it. It looks and feels cheap, which is a massive slur for a smartphone getting on for £300 sim-free. You see, Samsung has gone to great lengths to present a common design language in hardware, plastic gentle curves and so on, and in software with its nature-inspired TouchWiz, cartoony colours. You'll be familiar with all this, which means that Samsung's lowest-end Android phone and even some of its budget feature phones look and feel similar, size apart, to the most expensive Galaxy S3 variant. Now, the S3 gets away with it because it's large with that 4.8-inch display. You know you've got the flagship, and so does everyone around you. Wow, that's the Galaxy S3. Nice. The Galaxy S3 Mini in the hand, especially here in white, looks to all intents and purposes like a generic low-end Samsung, and you have to really pay attention to its performance and functions to see where your money is going. Of course, there's something to be said for owning a stealth smartphone, something really quite powerful, while looking to potential snatch and grab thieves that it's really not worth nicking. But at the same time, you want to enjoy picking up your new smartphone yourself. Compare this to the Motorola Razr Eye here. The latter, by comparison, is a sleek metal and Kevlar slice of the future that looks and feels more expensive than it actually is. A polar opposite to the Galaxy S3 Mini here. But don't lose heart. I did say, quote, quite powerful just now. Look past the plastic and there's a decent modern smartphone in here. Android 4.1 Jelly Bean out of the box, a dual-core 1 GHz processor and 1 GB of RAM, 8 gig of mass memory for your apps and data, plus microSD for as much media as you want. Others on the net have decried the Mini for being a bit sluggish, but after disabling the home button double tap detection for S-Voice, I got burned by that when reviewing the Note 2, I was quite happy here with the speed of the Mini. TouchWiz is what it is, a cute and colourful overlay on Android. I don't want it in a phone, but if it's there, I can live with it. All the Galaxy S3 motion gestures are here too, plus S-Voice. I can't really get excited by any of it though, sorry. Even the much vaunted floating video remains, well, just a gimmick. Some applications have been replaced altogether. Calendar is now S-Planner, though rather curiously I actually preferred the latter. with its emphasis on month views. Not everything you think you're getting is here out of the box. For example, Gallery is missing a photo editing function. In each case, you're directed to look in Samsung apps here and not the Google Play Store. It's a little messy having two app stores on the same device, but, well, at least it's an official way for Samsung to quickly update its own add-on apps. An update arrived for its Video Hub online store just today. But back to hardware, the camera in the Galaxy S3 Mini is actually surprisingly good for its size, giving better shots in low light than the Razer Eye and my Galaxy Nexus, both of which I thought would be comparable, all tested back to back. Here are some sample photos in various conditions. Samsung have done as good a job as they could with impressive image processing, given the tiny physical camera hardware. The video capture maxes out at 720p and there's no focusing at all, which is a bit disappointing. Here's a brief sample. The screen is WVGA and pentile, i.e. alternating red and blue pixels in rows of green, which in 2013 is disappointing. Compare this to the Galaxy S2 from 2011, 2 years ago, which was RGB at this same resolution, or even my Nokia 808 shooting this video, which also has a 4-inch screen, though with lower resolution but RGB layout, and as a result looks a lot better. Pentile is okay when the resolution is very high, but even my aging eyes can tell text is fuzzy at WVGA here. No worries over colours and display of games and photos and videos though. There's Samsung's usual excellent codec support and videos play beautifully. Aided by the same pretty good speaker as on the Mini's larger sister device. The battery is 1500 mAh and replaceable. Great job, Samsung, and it lasts for 2 days of normal use, aided of course by the typical user not really using it for quite the same screen-intensive uses as the much bigger Galaxy S3. My daughter's observation still stands though. At £150, I'd rate the Galaxy S3 Mini as a little cracker. At double the price, it's hard to justify purchase given the number of compromises to specifications and given the lack of any kind of premium feel. I'm guessing other potential buyers are feeling the same way. Since I've watched the S3 Mini's price during the last week or so, it's already down to £230 on offer in some places, and I'd bet on £199 within a couple of months, which is much more realistic. Tim from Phone Show Chat reports that the blue version is a lot nicer to look at and, dare I say, won't look quite so budget. It's perhaps telltale of the less than cutting edge internals here that the biggest talking point I can find is the S3 Mini's price. Find a price you're happy with and the rest of the phone will easily prove up to expectations.